Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today, we are going to completely change the way you think about the human brain, and specifically, how we understand Alzheimer's disease. For decades, the medical world has looked at cognitive decline as a structural disaster, something akin to an earthquake destroying a city. But a revolutionary new field of science, known as metabolic neurology, suggests we have been looking at the wrong disaster entirely. The city isn't crumbling because of an earthquake. It is failing because of a blackout. The infrastructure is there. The wires and buildings are intact, but the power grid is down. This is the story of the brain energy crisis, and why many experts are now calling Alzheimer's disease type 3 diabetes. To understand this paradigm shift, we have to look at where we have been for the last 30 years. The world of neurology was ruled by something called the Amyloid Hypothesis. The theory was incredibly straightforward. Scientists observed sticky proteins called beta amyloid accumulating in the brains of Alzheimer's patients. They believed these plaques were killing neurons and causing memory loss. Consequently, billions of dollars were poured into pharmaceutical research to create drugs that could scrub these plaques away, and scientifically they succeeded. The drugs worked. They cleared the plaques beautifully. But there was a massive problem. The patients didn't get better. In many cases, they actually got worse. While the pharmaceutical industry was hyper-focused on the cleanup operation, a different group of researchers began looking at the energy of the Alzheimer's brain. They noticed something startling that happened long before a patient ever forgot their keys or got lost in their own neighborhood. They noticed that the brain was losing its ability to process glucose. Glucose is the brain's primary fuel source. In a healthy person, the brain is like a roaring furnace. Even though the brain only accounts for about 2% of your body weight, it consumes 20% of your body's energy. It is an energy hog. But in an Alzheimer's patient, that furnace goes cold. The neurons become insulin resistant. They are unable to absorb the fuel that is floating right past them in the bloodstream. This is why the term type 3 diabetes is gaining so much traction. Just like in type 2 diabetes where the body becomes resistant to insulin, in type 3, the brain specifically becomes resistant. Dr. Chris Palmer, a Harvard psychiatrist and the author of the book Brain Energy, argues that this metabolic failure isn't just about memory. He suggests it is the root of almost all mental and neurological dysfunction. When brain cells, or neurons, don't get enough energy, they start to malfunction. They might become hyperexcitable, leading to anxiety or epilepsy, or they might become sluggish and dormant, leading to depression and dementia. Eventually, a starving neuron faces a grim choice. It must either wither and die to save resources for the rest of the network, or trigger a self-destruct sequence. When we look at an MRI of an Alzheimer's patient and see brain atrophy or shrinkage, what we are actually seeing is the brain downsizing. It is shrinking because it can simply no longer afford the electricity bill to keep all the lights on. To understand how we can possibly reverse this, we have to zoom in to the cellular level. Inside every single neuron are thousands of tiny power plants called mitochondria. These little organelles take the food you eat and the oxygen you breathe and convert it into ATP, the chemical energy of life. In the metabolic model of Alzheimer's, the mitochondria are the first casualties. They get damaged by chronic inflammation, which is the immune system attacking itself. They get damaged by oxidative stress, which is essentially the rusting of cells due to free radicals. And they get damaged by insulin resistance, which locks the door and prevents fuel from entering. When mitochondria fail, the neuron loses its ability to communicate. The synapses, which are the physical connections between your thoughts and memories, begin to wither. But here's the good news, and it is the core of our episode today. Mitochondria are dynamic. They are not static structures. They can be repaired, they can be multiplied, and most importantly, they can be refueled. If the brain is like a car that can no longer run on gasoline because of a clogged fuel injector, you might think it is destined for the junkyard. But the human brain is a hybrid vehicle. Evolution designed a backup fuel system for times of famine, and that fuel is ketones. Ketones are high-efficiency fuel molecules produced by the liver from fat. Unlike glucose, ketones do not require insulin to enter the brain cells. They can bypass the broken fuel injector completely and flow directly into the mitochondria to reignite the lights. This biological backdoor is the foundation of metabolic neurology. By shifting the body's metabolism, we can force the brain to run on this cleaner, more potent superfuel, effectively bypassing the metabolic blockages that cause cognitive decline. Two titans currently stand at the forefront of this field, offering actionable roadmaps for reversal. The first is Dr. Dale Bredesen. He is a neurologist who famously claims that Alzheimer's is like a roof with 36 holes. A drug might patch one hole, like the amyloid plaque, but if you leave the other 35 holes open, the rain is still going to get in. He developed the RECODE protocol, which stands for Reversal of Cognitive Decline. It is the first protocol to publish data on actually reversing these symptoms. Bredesen identifies three main subtypes of Alzheimer's. First, there is type 1, which is inflammatory or hot. This is driven by systemic inflammation and gut issues. Second is type 2, which is atrophic or cold. This is driven by a lack of nutrients and hormones. Essentially, the brain doesn't have the building blocks to maintain itself. And third is type 3, which he calls toxic or vile. This is driven by exposure to mold, heavy metals, or infections like Lyme disease. Dr. Bredesen advocates for something called a cognoscopy for everyone over the age of 45. This is a deep dive blood panel that checks markers conventional doctors usually ignore, like fasting insulin, aiming for a level below 5, and homocysteine, aiming for a level below 7. Then we have Dr. Chris Palmer, whose work bridges the gap between mental health and dementia. He uses the ketogenic diet not just for weight loss, but as a serious medical intervention. He views the diet as a way to lower brain inflammation and repair mitochondrial function. He has cited incredible case studies where patients with severe psychiatric and cognitive disorders saw remission simply by fixing their metabolism. So, how does one practically apply metabolic neurology? It requires a lifestyle overhaul. It is not a pill, it is a program. Let's break down the metabolic rehab guide. The first step is the fuel switch. The diet recommended by metabolic neurologists isn't the dirty keto of bacon and butter you see on social media. It is a plant-rich, nutrient-dense version, often called Keto-Flex. The goal is to achieve mild ketosis to provide the brain with that backup fuel. The plate should be filled with massive amounts of non-starchy vegetables, like greens and crucifers, healthy fats like avocados, olive oil, and nuts, and clean protein like wild salmon or grass-fed beef. But the timing is just as important as the food. This brings us to the 12/3 rule. This is critical. You must fast for at least 12 hours every night. That means if you finish dinner by 7 p.m., you do not eat breakfast until 7 a.m. Additionally, you must stop eating 3 hours before bed. Why is this so specific? Because digestion requires massive amounts of energy. If you eat late, your body is busy digesting while you sleep. This inhibits the glymphatic system. The glymphatic system is the brain's overnight cleaning crew. It is responsible for washing away those amyloid plaques we talked about earlier. If you are digesting food, the cleaning crew cannot do its job. The second pillar is exercise, but think of it as fertilizer. High-intensity interval training and strength training stimulate the production of a protein called BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of BDNF as Miracle-Gro for the brain. It encourages neurons to sprout new connections. In the metabolic model, exercise also sensitizes the body to insulin, directly combating the type 3 diabetes mechanism. The third pillar is sleep, or the rinse cycle. Metabolic neurologists view sleep as non-negotiable. During deep sleep, your brain cells actually shrink slightly. This creates space for cerebral spinal fluid to rush through the gaps and flush out metabolic waste. The protocol demands 7 to 8 hours minimum. And if you have sleep apnea, treating it is mandatory. Sleep apnea is essentially strangling the brain of oxygen and accelerating mitochondrial death. The fourth pillar involves supplements, acting as a bridge. While food is the foundation, a damaged brain often needs higher doses of nutrients than food alone can provide. This includes MCT oil, or C8 oil. This is a hack to boost ketones. C8 oil is converted directly into ketones by the liver, providing an instant energy surge for the brain even if you aren't perfectly keto. Another key supplement is magnesium threonate, a specific form of magnesium capable of crossing the blood-brain barrier. And of course, omega-3s, specifically DHA and EPA. These are the structural components of the neuron membrane. Dr. Bredesen recommends the SMASH acronym for fish, salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring, due to their low mercury content. Now you might be wondering, is this too good to be true? We have to address the skeptic's corner. The mainstream medical establishment has been slow to embrace metabolic neurology. There are a few reasons for this. First, it is complex. This multimodal approach involves changing diet, sleep, stress management, and taking multiple supplements simultaneously. This is a nightmare to study in a double-blind, placebo-controlled trial, which prefers testing one variable, like one pill at a time. Second is adherence. Sticking to a strict ketogenic diet and lifestyle protocol is hard work. Critics argue that elderly patients cannot maintain the rigor required for these results. And finally, the label type 3 diabetes is not yet officially recognized as a clinical diagnosis by major organizations like the American Diabetes Association, although the link between insulin resistance and dementia is universally accepted in research. However, the failure of amyloid drugs has forced the door open. The National Institute on Aging is now funding trials on the ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting, acknowledging that the old plaque-busting path has hit a dead end. We are witnessing the dawn of a new era. The diagnosis of Alzheimer's was once a death sentence, a slow, irreversible fade into the dark. Metabolic neurology flips the script. It tells us that the brain is resilient. It tells us that cognitive decline is not a destiny written in our DNA, but a dynamic state of energy failure that can be managed and in some cases reversed. The key takeaway is simple. Don't wait for the blackout. Whether you are 30 and dealing with brain fog, or 60 and worried about a parent, the time to fix the power grid is now. By treating the brain as a high-performance engine that requires premium fuel, regular maintenance, and rest, we can keep the lights on for decades longer than we ever thought possible. So here are your actionable steps for today. Get tested. Ask for a fasting insulin test, not just glucose, and check your inflammation markers. Cut the sugar, as it is the primary driver of insulin resistance. Close the kitchen early and adhere to that 3-hour fasting window before sleep tonight. And finally, move your body. Walk briskly for 20 minutes to boost that BDNF. The power is, quite literally, in your hands. Thank you for listening to G Fun Facts Online.